All right, you guys, Jim Cornette. I don't know of a much more polarizing figure in wrestling than him. Now, this video is from Inside the Ropes, and it's Jim Cornette shoots on why he thinks modern wrestling sucks. This is what I wanted to get to. I wanted to hear some of his overall takes. Now, I've heard bits and pieces of Corny, we all have. My general, going into this, because I'll give my take on his takes, but my general feeling for Cornette going into this is I think the guy has huge amounts of respect for the business, and I respect that. I think he's got great stories to tell. I mean, he's been around, so he's been into every level of the business, and he's got great stories that came out of that about the people and the industry itself. But as far as what I can glean, and we'll find out more here, I think we entirely differ on the current state of wrestling, and it sounds like Cornette just wants things to have never changed, and I don't think that would have ever worked. I think if it never changed, the business would be just about dead now. That's my opinion on it. And as far as what I know of him as a person, I don't think he's the kind of guy I'd want to hang out with. I'm sure that hurts his feelings tremendously,
but it's all about soap opera. It's all about contrived story. In professional wrestling, the story is basically, why are these guys mad at each other and what are they fighting for?
True.
Now
that part was always true, but is it more soap opera-ish now than it used to be? Of course it is. Is that always a bad thing? I don't think so. Are some of the stories silly? Sure. But some of the stories we came up with back in the day, I mean, that you had to put together within that night to get over in the indie house you were working in, some of them were silly. I don't think it's... the soap opera stuff is a bad thing.
He kidnapped his dog and cooked it for dinner or what, it's so uncredible that I think it's a byproduct of having television writers coming into the business rather than in professional wrestling you had bookers.
Yeah, but we had, and what he's saying is true. We used to do some pretty incredible storylines if we thought we could get them over way back in the day as well. And the stories you have nowadays may be much more soap opera-ish. They are. But a lot of times, to me, they're way more interesting. It was basically, back in the day, it was good versus evil. Evil would get the upper hand and good would eventually win. You would sprinkle in different elements within that, but that was the basic story we went with pretty much every time.
Those bookers made matches based on the personalities. People knew Kenny, and they knew what he was about, and they knew, what made him tick, and they knew Jim, and they knew what I was about, and they knew what made me tick, and they knew that if...
Okay, I'm going to stop him again, because in fairness, the bookers didn't always make matches based on the wrestlers' personalities. The bookers made matches many times based on the personality they assigned you. That's a significant difference. Because it wasn't, you were playing a character just like they are now. And I know that Jim knows that. Now, again, that's not true in all cases. Some higher profile names, they were basing it on who you were or who the public saw you as. But a lot of times, your gimmick was given to you by the booker.
They got us together, we would have just a natural personal rivalry because we are two different people, so we wouldn't like each other. And we would be fighting over a championship or over money or over prestige.
But there was always a
now it's just
good
so overly
versus
contrived that
bad.
It's become a television product, and it comes from, the TV writers having to put a story in. That fucking idiot Ed Ferrara one time.
No, here we
go.
go.
No, he is. Let's face it. Fuck him. They had, and this was the first wave of it, Ferrara and the other guy we'll get to, but
yeah, again, they started coming up with more elaborate, outrageous stories.
Goldust, and then somehow Marlena was pregnant, and then somehow Marlena got knocked off the apron and had a miscarriage.
Right? Yeah.
Which to me, and I went up to him, I said, Ed, what the fuck is this all about? Why would you do that?
I remember that. Was it over the top? Yeah. It's just that the business became more in the vein of movie-style storytelling. And I know that's what he's saying. It's just we differ on whether or not that's always a bad thing.
I said nobody wants
rather than just being good versus evil. You're the good guy. You're the bad guy. As I said, bad guy's going to get up on you for a while, but good will always triumph. That's the formula.
I said, for one thing, I said, you've been knocking them over the head with the fact that this shit's phony for so long. They probably didn't believe she was pregnant to begin with.
That in a nutshell is it. He doesn't like us being out of the kayfabe era. I do. I think kayfabe had its time. I think back in the day, kayfabe was necessary because that's what you were trying to get over, that you were watching a legitimate fight between the good guy and the bad guy. I think having kayfabe as a thing of the past truly allows the business or the wrestlers themselves even to become more, I don't know, identifiable with the fans. It brings, in other words, it brings the fans into the world more, the story more. I think that's a good thing, especially now in the current age of internet and social media and everything. You couldn't run this operation as strictly kayfabe anymore. You couldn't. There's no way, you know, with every match being videotaped and broken down frame by frame and everything. No, it would just get laughed at.
Therefore, the people who didn't believe she was pregnant, now you said she'd had a miscarriage, so the people don't believe that either. So they're just saying you're just
it's a story, Jim.
Capitalizing, you know, doing a fake miscarriage for the sake of a story. That's in bad taste. If anybody did believe she was pregnant,
wait a second.
He got knocked off the ring and had a miscarriage, that's in bad taste.
Oh, no. Hold on. Now he's going out. Bad taste? Wait a second. First of all, the storytelling now, you're supposed to suspend reality just like you would going to a movie. But that's neither here nor there. He's talking about bad taste. Let me tell you something, guys. Back in the day, even when I first started and before, and I first went to wrestling school in 1981, back in the day, you want to talk about bad taste, you were largely, many times, given a gimmick assignment at the house you were working at, depending on what you look like and who you were. It's just the way it was. If you were a black dude, there was a good chance you were going to be told to go down to the ring with a boombox, you know, and dancing along as you went and speaking in a very stereotypical black voice, dialect, whatever you want to call it. If you were, depending on who we were at odds with, certainly look at for how many decades, how many years, German wrestlers. If you were German or going to portray a German wrestler, you were going to walk stiff-legged down to the ring. And if your name was Joe Scarpa, you start your career as Joe Scarpa, but become Chief J Strongbow, even though you're still, you know, you're this Italian dude from, I forgot where he's from, I think the East Coast somewhere. And the way that he portrayed Indians or Native Americans was, when you look at it, it was really kind of, not kind of, it was really, really racist. So don't talk to me about saying that we weren't offensive back in the day. Come on.
Mothers or family members have had miscarriages. They don't want to fucking see that
and
on
it
their
wasn't,
wrestling.
And let me be clear though too. If you, like I say, if you were making the black guy carry a boombox, it wasn't meant at that time. They weren't doing it to try and demean anyone. That's what was easy, and that's what the crowd would, unfortunately, back then identify with. If you go back into, especially into the 60s, even into the 50s, those crowds were not going to accept anything except the stereotypes they knew of people. It's just the way it was.
It didn't sell any tickets. It didn't sell any pay-per-views. Well, this would
pretty
be
bad.
A story on any primetime network drama program. Well, this ain't a primetime network drama program, you little short, fat motherfucker.
But, well, okay, they're going to applaud them all they want, but why can't it be? It is in prime time, and it is a drama program. I would say you're wrong. And that's why Raw, SmackDown do as well as they do.
The outsiders,
I think they're wrong.
All of my adult life and a lot of my teenage life, and what people that come into it and try to rape it and put the boots to it and make money off of it and go on and do other things, what they don't understand is that wrestling fans don't see Stone Cold Steve Austin played by Steve Williams. They see Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's not guys playing a part, playing a role, playing somebody else. It's guys being themselves. That's what wrestling fans want to see, because that's why the top stars get over. Ric Flair is...
So you're saying then, the wrestling fans only wanted to see Mark Calloway, the very, very big, imposing, athletic man that he was. But do you think wrestling fans, and you're talking the same era as Stone Cold, thought that Mark Calloway was actually an Undertaker with otherworldly powers? Because that's what he just said. They only wanted to see Stone Cold is Stone Cold. So the Undertaker is the Undertaker. Kane is Kane. Come on.
Ric Flair. Steve Austin is Steve Austin. The Rock is The Rock.
In other words, what we're saying is gimmicks can work in a number or in a variety of ways. The gimmick can absolutely work and has worked for years with you being you or the persona that you give and you want people to believe. And it can be something outrageous, too, that the whole world knows is not legit. It's not legitimately who you are, but it plays well in the ring and it plays well for storylines. I think he's wrong.
It's distasteful when you have to, manipulate and manufacture all these different stories. So in answering your question,
and I'm not trying to shit on Cornette. He's perfectly entitled to his opinion.
Different now. It was always about a story, but it was always about in professional wrestling.
I just disagree.
It was about who's going to win the title? Who's going to win the money? Why are these guys mad?
Sure.
They have a very simple issue that you can grasp. In sports entertainment, it's
At
contrived,
its core,
it's complicated,
it's still the
and
same.
chances are
Just
it's not really believable.
and
it's just another dramatic fucking horseshit, teleplay.
A more
and that's why people watch it on.
The path to that. Okay, who's going to hold the title and the very core of the contentiousness between a couple of wrestlers is the same. It's just there's a lot more around it now. And as I said, Jim doesn't like that. I do. I like a good story.
Now, but they don't want to invest money in spending money to see what's going to happen, which is why the pay-per-view buy rates are going down, because it's not credible and believable. You don't believe these guys are really mad at each other. You know now that they're being told what to say and what to do, whereas...
Again, disagree with him. In that wrestling has gone through ebbs and flows throughout its history. But, I mean, you had the big pop with the Hogan era in the 90s and everything. But it's always gone through ebbs and flows. And unless you're the National Football League, that's true with most any form of sports or entertainment in America. Baseball's had its flows. The NBA has definitely had its ebbs and flows. I disagree that if you're in a downtime for wrestling, it's not because you're writing these outlandish stories. It's because you're in an era where you're not writing good outlandish stories. That's all.
In pro wrestling, it wasn't so obvious that guys are being told what to say and what to do. And who wants to get behind a fucking hero that does and says what he's told? You want to get behind a guy who kicks ass and does what he wants to fucking do and doesn't give a shit what anybody thinks about it, right? That's a fucking hero.
No, that's not the only hero, though.
While I'm on the subject,
that's a great hero. It's not the only way to play a hero.
When did it become a goddamn deal that you could just threaten these superstar wrestlers, we'll fire you and you'll be penniless? Well, they must not pay very fucking good if a guy can be fired and be penniless 6 weeks later.
Jim, it's an angle. And that when you're doing that, you're trying to hit an angle that will resonate with people. What would I do if I lost my job?
He's going to lose his fucking house and his wife will divorce him because he has no job. He's a goddamn major network television star. And you're telling me he's going to be broke because he goes 3 weeks without a fucking paycheck?
Wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
It doesn't make sense. And the promoters were always
entertainment or sports.
In pro wrestling, we're always at the mercy of the top stars when the heel wrestler would say, well, if you don't give me the match that I want, then I'm going to take your belt, Mr. Promoter, and I'm going to leave. And where will you be then without me to draw the crowds? Now it's like, we're the promoters, and if you don't do what we say, then we'll fire you, and you'll be penniless, and you'll be sweeping up garbage in the streets.
But what he just said still goes on, too. The wrestlers have leverage in certain storylines. Yeah, see, I don't agree with that. He's cherry-picking. Yes, you have the storyline, especially with the McMahon family. That was great stuff, those storylines. And, Vince McMahon was the ultimate evil boss, and Stone Cold was the employee who couldn't be controlled. That was great storytelling. But the story still works the other way as well.
In the alley. Fuck.
Yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to. And again, don't let me give anybody the wrong impression. I don't hate Jim Cornette at all. I just disagree with him. But to me, at least, in everything he went into there, he's cherry picking a lot of it. As I said, well, you can't. He's saying that you can't have the promoter telling the guy that that's not the way every storyline works. We know that wrestling has evolved to where it is much more drama, much more soap opera-ish. He doesn't like that, so he's going to, that's his whole angle. I don't think the business would have survived into the current state of society. And again, with all we have at our fingertips with the internet and with social media and everything, you could not survive portraying yourself as kayfabe. The business would have been laughed into almost non-existence. And he does tend to paint a rosier picture of wrestling back in the day than it really was. It was great. It was awesome. I love this business. But it wasn't all, peaches and cream back then either. It had plenty of warts, and wrestlers were treated horribly. Not saying that they're treated great now. He doesn't touch on that either. The way the promoters would constantly screw wrestlers, not pay wrestlers what they were promised and everything. It was not a great scene back in the day. And he does tend to try and gloss over that because his feelings are hurt that Kayfabe era is gone. I'm more than fine with the Kayfabe era being gone. And I'm more than fine with soap opera stories. Just write good ones. That's all I care. Write a good story and get me entertained. And a lot of the current product does that. What do you guys think?